I retired, all I knew was defending my end zone.
I didn't know what to do. I always had my guard up.
Ready to tear someone's head off.
Then I stopped settling for safe-ish and got safe with ADT.
With 24/7 monitoring,
What's up, Brian?
I'm more relaxed than ever.
And I don't have my head on the swivel anymore. Oh, a black cat chickadee.
I had a whole defensive scheme to keep it safe-ish. Woo!
And safe-ish wasn't good enough. Oh, hey.
Hey, Bam Bam!
What's going on?
Because now when it comes to protecting my house, I use ADT. Coming through! No, not in my house!
Oh, a cat.
The text message glowed on the screen like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. Can't wait to feel you again. Tonight? I stared at Vanessa's phone, my hand trembling as I held it. She was in the shower, humming some tuneless melody while steam crept under the bathroom door. The water ran loud enough that she couldn't hear me, couldn't hear the sound of my world cracking apart like ice over a frozen lake. My name is Nathan Bishop, and I'm 36 years old. I work as a corporate strategist for a mid-sized consulting firm downtown, the kind of job that sounds impressive at dinner parties but mostly involves spreadsheets and conference calls. I'm not the hero of any story. I'm just a guy who thought he had his life figured out until approximately 45 seconds ago. The phone buzzed again in my palm. Mark, the contact said. Just Mark. Not Mark from accounting or Mark the plumber. Just Mark, like he was someone important enough to need only one name. Miss you too. Counting down the hours. My wife's words. Her emojis. Her secret. I set the phone back exactly where I'd found it, screen down on the nightstand, and walked to the kitchen. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the counter to steady myself. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in. Everything looked the same, the coffee maker we'd gotten as a wedding gift, the stupid motivational print Vanessa had hung above the sink, the stack of fertility clinic pamphlets we'd left on the counter like a monument to our failures. 3 years. 3 goddamn years of trying to have a baby. 3 years of hormone injections and temperature charts and awkward conversations with doctors about my sperm count. 3 years of watching Vanessa cry every time her period came, of holding her while she sobbed about empty wombs and broken dreams. And all that time, she was fucking someone named Mark. The shower shut off. I heard her singing again, clearer now. Some pop song I didn't recognize. She sounded happy. Of course she did. I poured myself a bourbon, straight, no ice. It was 10 in the morning on a Saturday, but I figured the situation called for it. The liquor burned going down, and I welcomed it. Physical pain I could handle. This other thing, this hollowing out of everything I thought I knew, that was something else entirely. "You're up early," Vanessa said, emerging from the bedroom in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel. She looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful. 34 years old with the kind of face that belonged in magazines, all sharp cheekbones and full lips. I'd felt lucky every single day of our 7-year marriage. Lucky that she'd chosen me. Lucky that someone like her could love someone like me. Lucky. Right. "Couldn't sleep," I said. My voice sounded normal, which surprised me. Calm. Level. Like I wasn't falling apart inside. "You okay?" She moved toward me and I had to force myself not to flinch. "You look pale." "I'm fine. Just work stuff on my mind." She kissed my cheek, and I smelled her shampoo, coconut and vanilla. The same scent I'd been waking up to for 7 years. The same scent that had been in my nose when I'd proposed to her on that beach in Maui, when I'd carried her over the threshold of our first apartment, when I'd held her hand in that sterile clinic room and promised her we'd figure it out together. Lies. All of it. "I'm meeting Natalie for brunch," she said, pulling away and moving toward the bedroom. "Should be back around 3. Natalie. Right. Her friend, Natalie. Or was that a lie, too? Was Natalie code for Mark? Was brunch their little euphemism for whatever the hell they were doing behind my back? Have fun, I managed. She disappeared into the bedroom, and I heard her blow dryer start up. I stared at my reflection in the kitchen window. The man looking back at me seemed like a stranger, hollow-eyed, pale, defeated. I barely recognized him. I needed help. I needed someone who could think clearly when I couldn't. I needed Sammy. Samuel Walker had been my best friend since college, one of those rare connections that endured time, distance, and everything life could throw at us. He'd been an LAPD detective for 12 years before burning out and hanging up his shield to become a private investigator. Now, he spent his days following cheating spouses and doing background checks for paranoid employers. He'd always joked that at least the private sector paid better. I never thought I'd need his professional services. I texted him from the bathroom, door locked, water running to cover the sound. Need to talk. Can you come over? It's urgent. His response came back in seconds. Be there in 20. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. Vanessa finished getting ready, kissed me goodbye without really looking at me, and left in a cloud of perfume. I watched her through the window, saw her climb into her Mercedes, another thing we'd bought together, another shared dream turned into a weapon, and drive away. The moment her car disappeared around the corner, I grabbed her laptop from the bedroom. I'm not proud of what I did next, but desperation strips away pride pretty quickly. I knew her passwords. We'd always been open about that sort of thing, or so I'd thought. And her laptop opened without protest. Her email loaded, and I started reading. The first few messages were innocent enough. Work stuff. Conversations with her mother. A recipe exchange with a friend. But then I found a folder labeled Archive, hidden away in a subfolder, and my stomach dropped. Months of messages. Dozens of them. Intimate, explicit, detailed. Plans for hotel rendezvous. Talk of stolen weekends. Photographs I had to close immediately because seeing them made me want to put my fist through the screen. And receipts. God, the receipts. Hotel rooms in Chicago. Flights to San Francisco. Dinners that cost more than my weekly salary. All paid for from our joint account. Our money. The money we were supposedly saving for IVF treatments and baby nurseries, and the future we were building together. She'd been spending it on him. The buzzer rang, making me jump. I closed the laptop carefully, put it back exactly where I'd found it, and let Sammy in. He took one look at my face and said, "Jesus, Nathan, what happened?" "She's cheating on me," I said. The words came out flat, emotionless. I think I was in shock. "Vanessa, she's been cheating on me." Sammy closed the door behind him and steered me toward the couch. He was a big guy, 6'2" and solid, with the kind of presence that made people pay attention. Gray was starting to creep into his dark hair, and his face had the weathered look of someone who'd seen too much of the world's ugly side, but his eyes were kind. They'd always been kind. "Tell me everything," he said. So I did. I told him about the text message, the emails, the receipts. I told him about the fertility treatments and the crying, and the promises we'd made to each other. I told him about feeling like a fool, like the punchline to a joke everyone else was in on except me. He listened without interrupting, his jaw getting tighter with every word. "You know his last name?" he asked when I finished. "I can find out. He's in her phone just as Mark." "Let me have the phone number. I'll run it." I gave him the digits I'd memorized, and he pulled out his own phone, fingers flying over the keyboard. 2 minutes later, he had a name. "Mark Brennan," Sammy said. "Tech entrepreneur, 37 years old. Runs a startup called Next Tech Solutions. Venture capital darling. Worth about $8 million according to the business filings." $8 million. Of course. Because I wasn't enough. My corporate strategist salary, my middle-class dreams, my promises of stability, none of it was enough. She needed the tech millionaire with the penthouse and the sports car and the unlimited expense account. "I can dig deeper," Sammy said carefully. See where they've been meeting? Get you proof if you need it for a divorce. Divorce. The word landed like a punch. I hadn't even thought that far ahead yet. I was still stuck in the discovery phase, still trying to process the fact that my wife was a stranger. Yeah, I said. Yeah, do that. Nathan. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I gotta ask, what are you planning here? Because the look on your face right now, I've seen that look before, usually right before someone does something they can't take back. I'm not going to kill anyone, if that's what you're worried about. That's not what I asked. I met his eyes. I don't know yet. I just know I can't let this go. I can't just walk away and pretend it didn't happen. She doesn't get to destroy me and skip off into the sunset with her rich boyfriend. Sammy was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, but whatever you do, we do it smart. We do it clean. No revenge fantasies that land you in jail or get you sued into oblivion. You want to hurt them? We hurt them the right way. The right way, I repeated. Information first. Then we figure out our play. He stood up, pocketing his phone. I'll start digging today. Should have something for you by tomorrow. After he left, I sat alone in the apartment for a long time, staring at nothing. The silence was oppressive. Even the sounds of the city outside, traffic, sirens, the distant rumble of construction, seemed muted, like the world had been wrapped in cotton. My phone buzzed, a text from Vanessa. Brunch is running long. Probably won't be home until dinner. Love you. Love you. 2 words that used to make me smile. Now, they just made me sick. I typed back, no problem, take your time. And then I got to work. Sammy came through faster than I expected. By Sunday afternoon, he was sitting in my living room with a tablet full of information that sent a chill down my spine. Mark Brennan owns a penthouse in the Pearl District, he said, swiping through photos. 10th floor, corner unit. Building has minimal security. I could get in if we need to. We'll need to, I said. He gave me a look but continued. They've been careful. No hotel reservations under their real names locally, but I found flight records. She's been to San Francisco 3 times in the last 4 months. Each time Brennan had business there the same week. Where does she tell me she's going? Twice she said work conferences. Once she said visiting her sister. Her sister lived in Phoenix. Vanessa knew I never called to verify. There's more, Sammy said. Bank records. You were right about the joint account. She's been withdrawing cash. 500 here, 1,000 there. Small enough not to trigger any flags, but it adds up. I'd estimate she's taken close to 20 grand over 6 months. $20,000. Our IVF fund, our emergency savings, our future. She'd been feeding it to her lover like it meant nothing. What else? My voice sounded strange to my own ears, distant, mechanical. His business is legitimate, unfortunately. Next Tech Solutions is actually doing pretty well, but he's got a reputation. I talked to some people in the tech scene. Word is he's aggressive, cutthroat, stepped on a lot of people on his way up, made enemies. Enemies I can use? Maybe. I'm still digging. He paused. Nathan, I have to ask again. What's the end game here? Are you thinking divorce? Because if you are, this evidence is golden. You'd get everything. I don't want everything, I said. I want them to suffer. The words surprised me, as much as they seemed to surprise Sammy. But they were true. This wasn't about money or property division or legal victories. This was about making them feel what I felt, making them understand what they'd destroyed. Okay, Sammy said slowly. Then we need to think strategically. What hurts them most? I'd been thinking about nothing else for 24 hours. For Vanessa, it's her image. She cares about what people think. Her career, her reputation, her standing in the community. She's spent years building this perfect persona. And Brennan? His business. His money. his sense of superiority. I felt something cold settle in my chest. We take both. Vanessa came home that evening acting like everything was normal. She asked about my day, told me about brunch with Natalie, kissed me goodnight. I played along, responding with the right words at the right times, pretending I was still the trusting husband she thought I was. But inside, I was calculating, planning, watching her like a scientist studying a particularly interesting specimen. I started following her, not physically, I couldn't risk being spotted, but digitally. I installed tracking software on her phone while she was sleeping, the kind of thing Sammy used in his investigations. It showed me everywhere she went, everyone she called, every text message she sent. She was careful, but not careful enough. Most of her messages to Mark went through an encrypted app, but she got sloppy sometimes. Regular texts slipped through. Phone calls happened when she thought I was in the shower or out running errands. "Miss your hands on me." She'd texted him Tuesday afternoon while I was supposedly in a meeting downtown. I'd actually been in the coffee shop across from our apartment building, watching her window, seeing the glow of her phone screen as she typed. "Tomorrow night? My place?" he'd responded. "Can't wait." Tomorrow night. That was Wednesday. She'd already told me she had a late work meeting and would probably crash at her friend Julie's place rather than fight downtown traffic at midnight. "I understand," I'd said when she'd told me that morning. "Drive safe." She'd smiled at me. Actually smiled, like lying to my face required no effort at all. Wednesday evening, I followed her. Not with the tracking app this time. I needed to see this with my own eyes. I borrowed Sammy's nondescript Honda and parked half a block from Mark's building, watching the entrance. Vanessa arrived at 7:45, wearing the black dress I'd always loved on her. She'd told me she had to dress professionally for the client meeting. Client meeting. Right. She walked into the building like she owned it, didn't even glance around to see if anyone was watching. The doorman nodded at her, clearly not the first time she'd been there. I sat in that car for 4 hours, watching the lit windows of the penthouse, imagining what was happening inside. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to storm up there, kick down the door, make them face me. But that wasn't the plan. That was emotional. That was messy. I needed to be cold, calculated, patient. Vanessa emerged at 11:30, hair slightly mussed, lipstick gone. She looked happy, satisfied. She climbed into her Mercedes and drove away, probably heading home to the bed we shared, where she'd slip in beside me and pretend she'd been at Julie's place watching Netflix and drinking wine. I drove home first, made sure I was in bed with the lights off before she arrived. I heard her come in, heard her move quietly through the apartment, trying not to wake me. She slid into bed 20 minutes later, and I felt her curl up against my back. "Love you," she whispered. I didn't respond. I was supposed to be asleep. And maybe, in a way, I was. The Nathan who would have answered her, who would have believed her, who would have loved her back. That Nathan was dead. She'd killed him. The man lying in this bed now was someone else entirely. Over the next 2 weeks, I gathered more evidence. Sammy helped me access Mark's calendar through some technical magic I didn't fully understand and didn't want to. We knew when they were meeting. We knew where they were going. We knew everything. And I started making my move. The first strike was subtle. I created an anonymous email account and sent a message to several of Mark's business associates, people Sammy had identified as competitors or former partners with grudges. The message was simple. Ask Mark Brennan about his accounting practices with the Riverside deal. The numbers don't add up. There was no Riverside deal. That wasn't the point. The point was to plant doubt, to make people start asking questions, to make Mark feel the first tremors of the earthquake I was building beneath his feet. 2 days later, Sammy reported back that Mark had been in 3 emergency meetings with his board. Someone had started asking about the Riverside deal. Someone was digging into his company's finances. They won't find anything, Sammy said, because there's nothing to find, but you've made him paranoid. Good. The second strike hit Vanessa. I hacked her work email, again, thank you Sammy for the tutorial, and found out she was up for a major promotion. VP of Marketing. She'd been working toward it for 2 years. I sent an anonymous message to her boss, a stiff corporate type named Arthur Patterson. In it, I suggested that Vanessa had been padding her expense reports. I attached edited screenshots of her actual expenses, the ones from her trysts with Mark, and made them look like business trips she'd fabricated. She wasn't padding her expense reports for work. But Patterson didn't know that. All he knew was someone had sent him troubling information about his star employee. Vanessa came home Friday night looking shaken. Everything okay? I asked, all concern and sympathy. Arthur pulled me into his office today, asked me about some expense reports from last quarter. Someone sent him an anonymous tip that I was falsifying claims. That's insane. You'd never do that. I know. I showed him all my receipts, explained everything. He seemed satisfied, but... She sat down heavily on the couch. What if someone's trying to sabotage me? What if I lose the promotion? I sat beside her, put my arm around her shoulders. She leaned into me, and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. I'm sure it'll be fine, I said. You've worked so hard. They know your value. She looked up at me, eyes wet. I don't know what I'd do without you. You're the only person I can count on. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. Actually breathtaking. I had to fight to keep my expression neutral. Always, I said. I'm always here for you. That night, after she fell asleep, I went through her purse. I found what I was looking for tucked into an inner pocket, a positive pregnancy test. I stared at it for a long time, this little plastic stick that represented either my greatest dream or my worst nightmare. She was pregnant. After 3 years of trying, after all the treatments and the disappointments, she was finally pregnant, and she hadn't told me. Why? The answer was obvious. She didn't know who the father was. Or she did know, and it wasn't me. I put the test back exactly where I'd found it and went to the living room. I poured myself another bourbon, then another, until the bottle was half empty and the room was spinning. My phone buzzed. Sammy, you awake? Yeah. Found something. Can I call? Give me a minute. I stepped out onto the balcony, closing the sliding door behind me. The city spread out below, all lights and noise and people living their oblivious lives. I called Sammy back. What have you got? Mark Brennan isn't as clean as he looks. Did some deep diving into his business history. He's got shell companies, offshore accounts. Nothing illegal on the surface, but the structure is suspicious. I showed it to a forensic accountant friend of mine. She thinks he might be involved in some kind of fraud scheme. Can you prove it? Not yet. But if someone started looking, really looking, I think they'd find something. The question is, do you want to open that door? I thought about Vanessa's face when she'd talked about losing her promotion. I thought about Mark's emergency board meetings. I thought about the pregnancy test hidden in my wife's purse. Open it, I said. Open every door. Burn it all down. The first real confrontation happened at the airport. I'd been planning it for days, waiting for the right opportunity, and when Sammy informed me that Mark and Vanessa were booked on a flight to San Francisco for the weekend, I knew it was time. I got there early, positioned myself in the terminal where I could watch them arrive. They came separately, another sign of their caution, but met at the gate 40 minutes before boarding. I watched them greet each other, watched the way Mark's hand lingered on Vanessa's back, watched her lean into him with a familiarity that made my stomach turn. They sat in the waiting area, heads close together, sharing some private joke. Vanessa laughed, that bright, genuine laugh I hadn't heard in months, maybe years. She looked happier with him than I'd seen her in our entire marriage. That was the moment something inside me crystallized. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about truth, about making them face what they'd done. I walked up to them, carrying my briefcase, like I was just another business traveler passing through. Mark saw me first. His eyes widened, just slightly, and I saw him tense. "Nathan," Vanessa said, her face draining of color. "What are you—" "Hello, Vanessa." I turned to Mark. "And you must be Mark Brennan. I've heard so much about you." "Well, not heard exactly. Read so much about you." Mark recovered quickly. I'd give him that. He stood up, extending his hand. "I don't believe we've met." "No, that's strange. You've been fucking my wife for 6 months, and we've never been properly introduced. Where are my manners?" People were starting to stare. Vanessa grabbed my arm. "Nathan, please. Not here." "Not here?" I repeated. "Where would you prefer? Our apartment? Your office? How about Mark's penthouse? I believe you're quite familiar with that location." "Sir, is there a problem?" A security guard had appeared, hand on his radio. "No problem at all," I said pleasantly. "Just having a conversation with my wife and her lover. That's not against airport regulations, is it?" Vanessa was crying now, makeup running down her cheeks. Mark looked like he wanted to hit me. Good. Let him try. Assault charges would be a nice addition to everything else I had planned. "I know everything," I said quietly. "Just for them. Every hotel, every lie, every dollar you stole from our account, every text message. I know about San Francisco. I know about the pregnancy." Vanessa gasped. "How did you— Did you really think I wouldn't notice? Did you think I was that stupid?" I laughed, and it sounded broken even to my own ears. "Actually, don't answer that. Clearly you did." "Nathan, let me explain," Vanessa started. "Explain what? That you're a liar? A cheater? That you've been using our fertility struggles as cover for your affair? That you're pregnant with another man's child and we're probably going to pass it off as mine?" My voice was rising now, and I didn't care. "What exactly needs explaining?" The security guard stepped closer. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to calm down or leave the terminal." "I'm leaving," I said. I looked at Vanessa one last time. "Enjoy your trip. Enjoy your life with him. I'll have divorce papers drawn up by the time you get back." I turned and walked away, my hands shaking so badly I had to shove them in my pockets. Behind me, I heard Vanessa calling my name, but I didn't turn around. I'd said what I needed to say. The satisfaction I'd expected didn't come. Instead, I just felt empty. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The financial investigation Sammy had started began bearing fruit. His forensic accountant friend found irregularities in Next-Tech Solutions books, creative accounting that bordered on fraud. Money was being moved through shell companies, contracts were being structured in ways that raised red flags, and investors were being shown numbers that didn't match reality. "This is serious," Sammy told me. "If this gets out, his company's done, and he might be looking at criminal charges. Then let's make sure it gets out." "Nathan, they destroyed my life, Sammy. They get to walk away happy? No. No way." He sighed. "You know I'm with you. I just want to make sure you understand what you're doing here. This isn't a prank. This could ruin him completely." "Good." I contacted a financial journalist at the Seattle Times who had a reputation for taking down corrupt business leaders. I sent her everything Sammy's friend had found, along with an anonymous note suggesting she look into Next-Tech Solutions' accounting practices. 3 days later, the first article dropped. Tech darling Next-Tech Solutions faces fraud allegations. The story outlined the suspicious financial structures, the offshore accounts, the discrepancies between public statements and internal documents. It stopped short of accusing Mark directly, but the implications were clear. His company's stock price dropped 30% in a day. I watched it all unfold from my apartment, tracking the news coverage, reading the comment sections where people who'd once praised Mark were now calling for investigations. It felt good. It felt right. Vanessa called me that evening. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Nathan, you have to stop this," she said immediately. No preamble, no apology. "I know you're angry, but what you're doing to Mark..." "I'm not doing anything to Mark. I'm just helping the truth come out. His business is collapsing. He's going to lose everything." Funny, that's exactly what happened to me. I kept my voice level, except I didn't have to lie or cheat or steal to build what I had. I just had to trust the wrong person. "Please, I know I hurt you. I know I made mistakes, but this is too much." "Too much? You want to talk about too much? Let's talk about spending $20,000 of our money on your affair. Let's talk about getting pregnant and not telling me because you don't know who the father is. Let's talk about lying to my face every single day while you were sleeping with him." Silence on the other end of the line. "That's what I thought," I said. "Don't call me again unless it's through your lawyer." I hung up and immediately called Sammy. "We need to move to the next phase." "The break-in?" "Yeah, tonight." Getting into Mark's penthouse turned out to be easier than expected. Sammy had cased the building and found that the security system was impressive but not impenetrable. More importantly, he'd managed to clone one of the maintenance crew's access cards during a casual conversation that I was pretty sure had involved some light bribery. We went in at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, dressed in dark clothes and carrying basic tools. Sammy disabled the camera for the 10th floor, another trick from his police days, and we slipped into Mark's apartment. It was obscene. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Furniture that probably cost more than my car. Art on the walls that looked expensive even to my untrained eye. This was the world Vanessa had chosen. This was what I couldn't give her. "We should make this quick," Sammy whispered. "In and out." I moved through the apartment methodically, opening drawers, checking closets, looking for anything useful. In his home office, I hit the jackpot. A laptop left conveniently open, files scattered across the desk, a filing cabinet that wasn't even locked. I photographed everything: bank statements, contracts, emails, personal correspondence. Some of it was potentially incriminating. Most of it was just human, ordinary. The mundane details of a life lived by someone who thought he was untouchable. "Nathan," Sammy hissed from the doorway. "Someone's coming." We heard the elevator ding, footsteps in the hallway, a key in the lock. We barely made it to the balcony before the front door opened. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath, praying Mark wouldn't decide to step outside for some fresh air. Through the glass, I could see him entering, Vanessa right behind him. "Not going to just give up," Mark was saying. "I've got lawyers. I'll fight this." "But what if it's true?" Vanessa sounded scared. "What if there really are problems with the books?" "There aren't. This is someone trying to sabotage me. Probably a competitor." "Or Nathan," Mark snorted. "Your husband? The corporate strategist? He doesn't have the balls or the brains." I felt Sammy's hand on my arm, restraining me. "Later," his grip said. "Save it for later." "I'm scared," Vanessa said. "Everything's falling apart. Work is investigating me. Your company is under scrutiny. I'm pregnant, and I don't even know whose baby it is." "It's mine," Mark said firmly. "We both know the timing. But we can't be sure. And if it's Nathan's, then we deal with it. We'll figure it out. But right now, I need you to stay calm. We're going to get through this." They moved deeper into the apartment, and Sammy and I took the opportunity to slip out. We used the balconies, they were connected in a long line down the building's side, and climbed down to the 9th floor, where Sammy had already jimmied open an empty unit. We made our way out through the service stairs, and 10 minutes later we were in his car, driving away. "You get what you needed?" he asked. I clutched the camera. "Oh yeah, I got plenty." The next morning, I filed for divorce. I used the photos from Mark's apartment, the bank records showing Vanessa's withdrawals, the phone records documenting thousands of calls and texts between them. I filed for full asset protection, claiming fraud and infidelity. I froze our joint accounts. Vanessa's lawyer called mine within hours. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Thomas that Sammy had recommended, listened to their demands and then calmly explained that they had no leg to stand on. Your client engaged in adultery, fraud, and emotional abuse, Patricia told them. My client has documentation of everything. If this goes to court, she'll be lucky to leave with anything more than her personal belongings. I didn't want it to go to court, though. Courts were public record, and public record meant other people controlling the narrative. I wanted to control it myself. I sent copies of everything to Vanessa's employer. The photos from Mark's apartment, the timeline of their affair, the documentation showing how she'd been using company time and resources to facilitate her relationship. Arthur Patterson called me personally 2 days later. Nathan, I want you to know how sorry I am. I had no idea any of this was happening. I appreciate that, Arthur. Vanessa has been placed on administrative leave while we conduct an investigation. Given the evidence you've provided, I don't think she'll be returning. She was up for a promotion, wasn't she? Not anymore. He paused. For what it's worth, you deserved better. Yeah, I said. I did. Mark's situation deteriorated faster. The Seattle Times journalist kept digging, and other media outlets picked up the story. Investors started pulling out. Board members began distancing themselves. The SEC announced they were opening an investigation. Nextech Solutions' valuation plummeted from $8 million to less than $1 million in 2 weeks. Mark's assets were frozen pending the investigation. His reputation, built so carefully over years, was in ruins. I watched it all with cold satisfaction. This was what they deserved. This was justice. Vanessa showed up at my apartment on a Thursday evening, 3 weeks after the airport confrontation. I nearly didn't let her in. The knock on the door felt like a hammer against my chest, each rap echoing with the memory of every betrayal, every lie, every stolen moment she had hidden from me. But curiosity gnawed at me, insistent and ruthless. I needed to see her, to confront the living embodiment of my shattered world. When the door opened, I froze. She looked like a ghost of the woman I once knew, red-eyed, pale, her face hollowed by sleepless nights and regret. Her hair hung limp around her shoulders, devoid of the vibrancy it had once held. She was thinner than I had ever seen her, the weight of guilt and fear etched into every line of her body. Her presence was both familiar and alien, a living paradox of intimacy and betrayal. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice soft, wavering, as if it had lost all strength. The words themselves sounded small, fragile, as if they could shatter like glass under the weight of my gaze. I stepped aside, letting her enter, but every motion felt mechanical, deliberate. She walked into the living room, standing in the center, as if marking her place in a world she no longer belonged to. She looked around like she was seeing it for the first time, or perhaps like she was saying goodbye. Her eyes flickered over the furniture, the bookshelves, the framed photos, and I felt a cruel satisfaction. These were our shared memories, the remnants of a life she had defiled, and now she was reduced to a visitor in what had once been our home. "Nice to see you treating the place like a stranger's," I said, my voice cutting through the thick air, sharp and cold. Appropriate, since that's what we are now. "Nathan, I'm so sorry. For everything. I know that doesn't mean much, but I need you to know that." Her voice was a whisper of desperation, a fragile admission of guilt that trembled in the dim light of the apartment. "Why?" I asked, my voice quiet, measured, but filled with icy venom. "Why do you need me to know that? So you can feel better about yourself? So you can pretend you're a good person who made mistakes instead of what you really are?" She flinched, as though my words had struck her physically. What am I? She asked quietly, her eyes swimming with guilt and vulnerability. That soft, pleading look that used to melt me, now just fueling the storm inside me. A liar, a cheater, a manipulator. Someone who took every good thing in our marriage and used it as a weapon against me. Each word fell like a hammer, a sentence forged in the fire of my betrayal and anguish. Her shoulders trembled, her body sagging as if the weight of my accusations physically crushed her. You're right. All of that is true. But I loved you, Nathan. I still love you. The sincerity, or the attempt at it, shimmered in her eyes, fragile and desperate. No, I said, voice cold, sharp, a blade cutting through her desperate sentiment. You loved the idea of me, the safe choice, the backup plan, but you loved him more, or at least you loved what he represented, the thrill, the escape, the perfect illusion of someone else's life that you couldn't see in our own. She wiped her eyes, a tremor in her fingers, and her voice shook. I was confused. The fertility treatments, the stress. Don't, I cut her off, my anger building like a storm. My voice was low, almost a growl. Don't you dare blame our struggles for your choices. We were struggling, yes, but I was faithful. I was there. I never ran into the arms of someone else the moment things got hard. Her face crumpled entirely now, tears cascading down her cheeks like the remnants of a life she had ruined. I know. You're right. I don't have an excuse. Then why are you here? I demanded, stepping closer, the weight of my fury pressing on the air between us. Anger, betrayal, and something darker swirled in my chest, a hurricane of emotion that threatened to spill out. I want to fix this. I want to make it right, Nathan, she whispered, almost inaudible, like she was afraid to let the words escape fully. No, I said firmly, shaking my head, every syllable deliberate. You lost that chance the moment you chose him over me. You broke me. You shattered everything we had, and I am done pretending there's anything worth saving. She stumbled, collapsing onto the couch. Her sobs filled the apartment, a raw, aching sound that echoed off the walls. I felt nothing, not a shred of pity, not a flicker of empathy, just cold, suffocating emptiness. It was liberating in a way I hadn't expected. The absence of her manipulation, the absence of deceit, leaving only silence. Her phone buzzed against the coffee table. She glanced at it, and her face paled, draining the remaining warmth from her expression. I have to go, she said, standing abruptly, the motion jagged, unsteady. Go, I replied, my voice soft but icy. Go to him. Go to your lover. It's what you've been doing all along. She hesitated, looking as though she wanted to say something more, perhaps to plead, to beg, or to twist the narrative one final time. But she didn't. She turned and walked out, the door clicking shut behind her with a hollow finality. I stayed rooted to the spot, watching her disappear, feeling the world tilt slightly but not caring. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel anger. I felt nothing. And in that void, a strange peace settled over me. I had won, and it felt like a hollow, almost surreal victory. The following days blurred into a rhythm of cold efficiency. Phone calls, legal consultations, and meetings with my lawyer became my new normal. Divorce papers were drawn, accounts frozen, assets protected. Every action was precise, deliberate, a scalpel cutting through the remnants of her carefully constructed life. She had taken everything from me. Now I would dismantle what she had built, piece by piece. The first act was the release of the affair, the evidence of her lies, to the media. Sammy had helped me dig deeper, unearthing details, documents, and proof. I sent it to the journalists with clinical precision, knowing the aftermath would be swift and merciless. It was. Headlines screamed betrayal. Social media erupted. Vanessa's reputation crumbled like a house of cards in a storm. She had been painted as cold, calculating, manipulative. Her colleagues whispered. Her friends turned. The world she had built for herself collapsed overnight. Her career imploded. Her boss, Arthur Patterson, called me personally, his voice tinged with disbelief and concern. "Nathan, she's been placed on leave. Investigations are ongoing. Given the evidence, she won't be returning to work." "She deserves worse," I said, my voice empty of remorse, filled instead with the cold satisfaction of justice finally delivered. Mark's empire began to crumble as well. Nextech Solutions' stock plummeted. Investors withdrew. Analysts questioned his every move. The discrepancies Sammy uncovered spread through the media like wildfire, exposing the foundations of greed and deception he had built his empire on. Criminal investigators were circling, their shadow looming over him like an executioner. I didn't have to lift a finger further. The pieces were in motion, and they were falling apart spectacularly. Vanessa and Mark had lived their lives on lies and manipulation, and now, in quiet, relentless precision, I had dismantled it all. One morning, Sammy called. His voice was low, almost impressed. "Nathan," he said, "the SEC is on Mark. They've opened an investigation into Nextech. If they find what we've documented, he's finished." "And Vanessa?" I asked, pacing my apartment, phone pressed to my ear, feeling the tension tighten in my chest. "She's a pariah now. Public perception has turned against her. She's on the verge of being blacklisted from the industry." I closed my eyes, letting the satisfaction settle like a warm weight in my chest. Good. They deserve it. "But listen," Sammy's voice softened. "This is over. You can walk away now. You've won. No one can touch you." "Yeah," I said, exhaling a long, deliberate breath. "I know." The final confrontation was quiet. No shouting, no drama. Divorce filed, assets secured, reputations in ruins. Nothing remained for Vanessa or Mark to take from me. The city outside my apartment hummed with life, unaware that two worlds had collapsed within its confines. I sat in the silence, letting it press in, letting it sink into my bones. Freedom had a weight I hadn't anticipated. I left my apartment that afternoon. Without looking back, the past lay shattered, scattered like glass across a floor I would never step on again. The future was mine to shape. The wreckage behind me would never touch me. The last text from Vanessa lingered on my phone. "Love you." I deleted it, my thumb pressing with deliberate coldness. No sentiment, no hesitation. I was done. As I walked through the airport, ready to board a flight to a place I would claim as my own, a strange peace washed over me. They were gone. The betrayal, the lies, the hurt. It all belonged to the past. And I was finally free.